Hello and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 400. We are at 400. I'm doing absolutely nothing special for this episode. I saw it coming. I thought, I should do something, and I have not done anything. So, woo! Happy 400th episode. Thank you for listening. If you are just joining on the 400th episode, welcome. I mean, wow. If you've listened to all 400 episodes, my goodness. Thank you for that. Wow, 400. It's a lot. Maybe I'll do something for 500. I don't know. Should have gotten myself some cake or something this time, but didn't think about it. Anyway, 400 episodes of all of this. If you're joining me for the first time, what happens here is I say a couple of words, then, more than a couple. In this case, especially more than a couple, because I'm 400. Anyway, my name is Emily Rainbow Davis, and what's going to happen is I'm going to say some words, and then I will read you the blog, and then I will play you a song that is tangentially related to that blog. So that is what is going to happen here. And at points, I may celebrate that this is the 400th episode. Oof. Right. So, what is the blog today? Well, it's about a television program. It's called Mind Over Murder, and you can see it on the HBO platform. I think it's called Max these days, but I somehow can't take that on board. Anyway, you can probably find it somewhere, I hope. It is very interesting, and I will tell you more about it in the blog, which is called Documentary Theater in a Documentary. Despite my swearing off wrongfully convicted podcasts, I found myself watching a similarly themed docu-series recently. I was maybe halfway into the first episode before I realized it was a doozy of a wrongful conviction case. Were it not for the theater element, I might have quit watching right then. I'm glad I stuck around. Mind Over Murder is about the impact a murder had on a small town in Nebraska called Beatrice. 6 people were sent to prison for the crime, then pardoned and exonerated. But it's still a painful and contentious issue in the town, even decades after the events. The documentary shows us people who are still convinced that the exonerated people did it, and tells the stories of many of the people involved. All of that would have been enough for a fascinating documentary, but happening alongside it is a community theater production of a verbatim-style show about the situation. Not surprisingly, for this theater maker, the theatrical element was the most touching piece. The show brings the community together in incredibly moving ways and changes minds that previously seemed as though they'd be fixed in their beliefs forever. For me, it's a story about the power of theater. While watching, I wondered how this theater in small-town Nebraska decided to be so brave and bold as to create a verbatim show about something so contentious. Then I wondered how this documentary team managed to find out about them. In reading about it, I was surprised to learn that the theater piece was a part of it from the start. The show wasn't independent of the film. The director of the documentary commissioned the local theater, hired a professional writer-director to create it, and had it all integrated from the beginning. The director thought she'd track the actors' changing points of view, but it was the audience's change of view that became the most remarkable. The performance brings people together who you'd never have thought would tolerate one another. It changes minds that seemed unchangeable. You see a seismic shift happen in one night at the theater. Why does theater work where nothing else had? Nothing. Not the judicial system, not film, not time, not important conversation. Why theater? I've been thinking about it, and I think it is a strange combination of intimacy and alienation. I think the alienating effect of hearing the words from someone else's mouth allows someone to hear things you'd otherwise be guarded against. For example, I cannot bear to hear Donald Trump's voice. I mute it, fast forward through it, sing over it, whatever I have to do to avoid hearing him. I have a visceral response to his voice and face. But when someone reads his words or pretends to be him, I listen closely and watch without all the walls. For the family of the murdered woman, I imagine the 6 people who were convicted of the murder were similarly triggering for them. The family could not shift their opinions of them because they were always in the same bodies with the same voices as before. But in the theater piece, you're looking at entirely different people. It makes it possible to see them differently. That alienation effect allows you to let go of some things, I suspect. And then there is the intimacy of being all in the same room together. You're sharing space with the actors, those characters, and an audience of people who have a wide range of experience and opinions. Crying together, laughing together can really shift things. We are really in the room with the story when it's in a theater. I think, too, that it is important that it is the real words that were spoken by the subjects and not a dramatization. If a writer wrote them, then it would be easy to dismiss as a work of fiction. But when a writer has simply taken what was said and shaped it into an evening, it is very hard to dismiss. This style of theater is called verbatim, or documentary style, and it can be very powerful. One of my most profound acting experiences was doing Fires in the Mirror, which is a verbatim play about the Crown Heights riots. There was magic in stepping into real people's words and ways of being. I don't even know anonymous young man number 2's name, but he will be with me forever because I can still find his cadence and rhythm in my memory, even though it was over 3 decades ago. And audience members heard him too, through me, even though we shared neither race nor gender. I imagine that discrepancy helped them listen, maybe. But of course, the production of the play in Mind Over Murder was way more powerful because it was not only performed by members of the community, but for members of the community, including people featured in the story. That raises the stakes exponentially. It's brave of the theater company, and maybe that's why it has such a profound effect in the end, because everyone can see what it took to get everyone together in one space. The documentary doesn't reveal its own role in setting up this production. I suppose it prefers to have us believe that the community itself had the idea. But I think it's kind of beautiful that one artist commissioned other artists to make something healing. And maybe some other community, reeling from some other trauma, might take up the challenge to do something like this for itself. Maybe we could find a way to fund the arts so communities across the country could create similarly cathartic and healing works. That's a project I'd sign up for in a heartbeat. If you end up watching Mind Over Murder, please let me know. I will be curious to hear your thoughts on it. I believe it was the second to last episode is the show episode, and boy, did I weep through it. So if you need a good cry, I feel like it'll give it to you if you're a crier. Maybe not if you're not a crier, but boy, oh boy. Anyway, it is uplifting. It's an uplifting kind of cry. Anyway, what song am I going to give you? You may be wondering. Well, I may have exhausted my repertoire of theater-themed songs or show business-themed songs. This is 400 episodes. 400! So in the space of that time, me being a theater person, I talk about theater a fair amount, and I may have hit the limit. There's probably more somewhere, but I don't know them. So, and they're also not readily accessible because I have also learned many a song I did not know for this very project. In any case, so probably not a theater song, I thought. And then I also just wrote my own for my previous blog about wrongful conviction podcasts. That one is called Don't Talk to the Police, which could be a theme for this show as well, I will say. Although, this was, the crime is in the 80s. I feel like it would have been hard to know that you shouldn't talk to the police in the 80s. But maybe anyway, and these particular people were so vulnerable. Anyway, I'm not going to get into it now. But still, don't talk to the police. Next, what else? I thought, a song about Nebraska. I knew Bruce Springsteen had a song about Nebraska that a lot of people like. And I just thought, I'll just search for songs about Nebraska. There must be some. And I listened to the Bruce Springsteen song, which I just couldn't find my way into at all. And there was another song about Nebraska by someone called Rachel Price that I listened to a few times and I enjoyed very much. But what I settled upon is a song by a guy called Eric Anderson. And if you're listening to this and you're like, Emily, Eric Anderson, come on, you didn't know Eric Anderson before? I feel like you would be justified because Eric Anderson had a hell of a career and still, I guess, does. He lives in Norway currently. He's a contemporary with all of the folky guys from the 60s and 70s. I would say maybe more 60s. This song that I'm going to play for you here at the end, he also did as a duet with Phil Oakes. So when I was looking at this song on Spotify, there was this whole thing, there was a quote from, what's his name? Leonard Cohen, saying that Eric Anderson inspired him to write songs. Something like that. So this guy's pretty, wow. There's a lot of wows. You realize, and he wrote songs for a lot of famous people. I guess he may have been famous in a moment that was before my time, so I missed it. And he also hasn't really a really common sounding name like Eric Anderson. You could be like, I don't know. I know Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull and Eric Clapton. But anyway, for those of you who are like, oh yeah, Eric Anderson, I apologize. Please let me know who else I apparently don't know anything about. So I'm going to do you an Eric Anderson song here. It is called Plains of Nebraska. I'm not going to sing it like that. Don't worry. And I'm going to play that for you in just a minute. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening to this and all previous 399 episodes. It means the world to me to have your ears on this thing. So if you like it, please tell someone about it. Review, subscribe in whatever podcast app you're keen on. Apple helps a little bit more, unfortunately, than most. Maybe Spotify too. I can't really tell. But everywhere is good. I just discovered a bunch of new platforms through the other podcasts. And when I signed, I checked in on them, I'd never seen them before. I was like, oh, let me go see what Podbean is all about. So I go to Podbean, I go to, I think, this show and the others, and there are followers there. They're there already. I didn't even know the podcast was there on the platform. I did not put it there. So that's kind of cool. So if you're in some kind of obscure podcast platform, yes, please rate it there. Why not? It's a nice little discovery to be like, oh, I have 13 followers on Podbean or whatever it may be. Anyway, yes, do that. Or if you'd like to support this podcast with your dollars or whatever currency you've got, We have patreon.com/Emily R. Davis. You could also do like single donations at Ko-fi or PayPal. There's also Substack if you felt like doing a paid subscription there. That is also available. All those links are in the show notes and probably somewhere on my website. Maybe not. I don't know if I've updated about Substack over there. I gotta think about that. I'll get to work on that. Meanwhile, mostly, thank you for listening. Listening is the best thing. Thank you. So, I give to you Plains of Nebraska by the, of course everyone knows him, famous folk star Eric Anderson. Have you heard about a country where the rivers run free? That's a place where I think you ought to go, where the corn stands high, tall as the sky, on the great plains of old Nebraska. In school I learned the men who died by the gun, but not of those who died by the hoe. The land has drunk the rains of many a farmer's blood, now forgotten and buried long ago. And where are the hands that plowed fields without sleep, that saved a dying calf without rest? And where's the feet that walked down hot dusty trails on their way to seek their fortune going west? And where are the fathers who died in the dust, and mothers who died hungry in the snow? And where's the kids that watch the banks plow the houses down? Those are things I guess my teachers never know. Have you heard about a country where the rivers run free? That's a place where I think you ought to go, where the corn stands high, tall as the sky, on the great plains of old Nebraska. Now you tell me droughts hurt only corn and not men. You smile and say hard times have gone away. I guess I should have listened to my city politician who keeps telling me that those are better days. Is there anybody left to walk a muddy mile? Is courage a word that's only said? Is it true them dusty days were days that never really were, but only tales and books to be read? Have you heard about a country where the rivers run free? That's a place where I think you ought to go, where the corn stands high, tall as the sky, on the great plains of old Nebraska. On the great plains of old Nebraska. On the great plains of old Nebraska.